Hello, and welcome to Givey Connect Plus, a podcast series where we talk to local charities in the UK and put the spotlight on their exciting projects and initiatives. I'm your host, Fiza Surheel, and our guest for today is Will Golding from the Bridgend Farmhouse community. Winners of the Voluntary Arts Scotland Epic Awards 2020, Bridgend Farmhouse are raising funds for a volunteer training program to complete the build of an Eco-Bothy. This program will not only create opportunities for many volunteers to learn natural, sustainable building techniques, but also work together to build a community bothy building. These volunteers come from a wide range of backgrounds and are building confidence, new skills, knowledge, friendships, and a greater awareness of sustainable practices. The Eco-Bothy itself is a straw bale build, which uses 160 bales from local straw. The fundraising project involves asking people to buy a bale for the Bridgend Eco-Bothy. If 160 bales are bought, they will be able to complete the project by April 2021. It will be open to the public from then onwards. Once again, a very warm welcome to Will. I would just like to start off by asking you, how and when did the idea of this project come into being? What were the main motivations behind creating this environmentally friendly bothy? And what is it that you hope to achieve with this project?
Absolutely. So Bridgend Farmhouse was a working farm in Edinburgh until 2000. It was one of the last remaining working farms in the middle of Edinburgh. And the council took ownership of that at that point. The farmers left, who we're still in contact with. And the building and the bothy that I mentioned started to sort of collapse. But it sits at the edge of what is now a big community woodlands, in between sort of three distinct areas in Edinburgh, as I said, that are affected by social inequalities. So 11 years ago, we formed a small community group and started a campaign which was to save Bridgend Farmhouse from collapse, and to create this hub for resilience, for control, influence, community activities, but also to link directly into the outdoor environment, natural environment next to us, and to help to work towards sustainable ways of living that are not exclusive. So that was always a kind of principle that we had, that we could hopefully try to achieve social and environmental justice through this community-owned site. And so after a long time of campaigning and community development, in 2015, we became the first organisation within Scotland in an urban context to buy the land, I suppose, to have an asset transfer from the council to our own ownership, so to take control of the land. So since then we've been working on that. And the bothy plays a big part of that, because one of the aims was that people would learn these principles of ecological building and sustainable ways of living, as I said, but while doing it, develop the skills themselves and have the influence and control over that. So having the ability to do that was what we wanted to achieve. And then once we did, we wanted to start working on that so that people would build it all the way from the bottom up. And so from learning that would create a sense of ownership. People would steward it and care for it, and have the skills to keep looking after it for many, many years to come. So it acts as a place that could also involve activities in the woodlands and in the park, and people coming back to that place. But represents the ethos of what we're trying to do. A lower carbon, more sustainable way of life, where people are less individualized and support and care for each other with using shared resources. So that's how we went about it. And we also early on were supported by and worked with CEDA, Scottish Ecological Design Architecture. So they worked with us, and that's a lot what they do to help with the architectural work around it, the principles of how the design would be, and I've received a lot of help from them as well during the process.
That sounds like a super amazing and super inspirational story indeed. It just gives me so much joy and hope to see steps like this being taken in the right direction. And absolutely, just as you mentioned, sustainable practices and low carbon living are such necessities during the current time, and also ever more relevant, especially during the pandemic. COVID-19 has definitely shown us how vulnerable we can truly be towards the forces of nature. And just speaking of the pandemic, COVID-19 has definitely disrupted so many parts of our lives and twisted things in a different direction. So I'm definitely sure that it wouldn't be any different for the charity sector. And I would just like you to elaborate on some of the challenges that have been posed by COVID-19 in this unprecedented time, or perhaps some of the challenges in general that you've faced since you first started this project. Has COVID-19 proved to be a huge issue in fundraising? If so, how? And do you have any advice or any tips for other people who are fundraising or are working on projects such as building a Eco-Bothy? So that's quite a few questions toppled into one, but if you could just elaborate on those step by step.
So I'll try to. I'll go through some of the challenges that the Bothy has faced along the way, and then more recently the impact that COVID-19 has had. So it has been a project which has had a lot of challenges. It's not been plain sailing for us. And it's quite an unusual thing to do, and both to fundraise for, because it's not just a capital build where we would apply for that funding that way, because we're building it ourselves. So there's all these sort of risks or unknowns for people. The volunteers are building it. But it's not just a traditional training program. There's a significant construction to it. From building the roof to the foundations and all aspects. So the fundraising itself has been a challenge to see, for people to kind of get the vision that we want to do that whole thing ourselves, and every single stage of it. So that's been one of the challenges, and we've had to continually just look at little bit of funding as we went along the way, and try to gain support, like through our Givey page. There's been all sorts of other issues around the planning laws and building warrants, and having to stop and start because of funding or because of warrants, and that's meant that momentum has been hard to then build up again. Plus weather, weather will affect, of course, when we can do like the lime render on the outside or the clay render on the inside, when the straw bales were available to install them, when we could put the green roof in, when materials were available, whether volunteers were around, and what the impact that their lives are having on them, and being able to participate or not. So it's a constantly moving and changing situation, and we've been wanting to add an outdoor play area to on the site, as well as a compost toilet, which is what we would like to do to complete the project. And so we've been trying to work towards them, but they've been pushed back and back as well. So then we had a bit of momentum, and this time last year, and we were hoping to get it finished by spring summer last year, and then when the first lockdown happened, as everywhere else, we shut down, and but Bridgend as a charity and as a community hub was able to utilize its facilities and also a fantastic volunteer effort like we saw all across the UK and perhaps across the world, where it galvanized this sense of care and responsibility and action, social action. So it became this massive center for food distribution, and we distributed over 75,000 meals within the period of 3 months. Started to provide lots of free bikes or bike repair services and phone calls and online groups, and just facilitating a sort of mutual aid network within the area. So that became a core focus. And for the Bothy, that meant we were stopped, but it did engage more of our members. We're collectively owned by 405 people who have all invested to become member shareholders and have an equal democratic say of the organisation. So it engaged more of our members who saw this support we were able to give and could donate as well during that time to support those efforts. And also it meant we engaged with more people who were really suffering during that time. So we were able to extend our reach and to better understand the experiences people are having within our community and how we can best serve them. So in August, we were able to restart the Bothy build. And there was a huge demand because of the kind of mental health pandemic, really, that to have some form of activity outdoors safely. And so, to be able to provide that was really significant. We could do 4 people at a time working on the Bothy at a distance. So it became a really important project for that. And we were able to carry that on till December, but once again have had to stop. So that's another challenge for us. During the time, I suppose an issue is that a lot of the funding has gone through emergency provision, both funding from organisations and philanthropic donation focused on foods or other forms of emergency provision where the need is high, and that has made it harder to fund things like this, which are maybe less immediately tangible, but the impact of them is just as important in terms of mental health and preventing isolation through the training elements of it. So yeah, in terms of tips, I mean, I would welcome any tips as well, but I think just continuing to reach out to provide that support further and further does galvanize support within the organization, and I suppose it's a time to maybe take part in things like this, where it's able to help to share information about what's going on and help try to raise awareness, and to continue to kind of listen to and connect with the people within our community. We've done a piece of community research to try to do that and respond to those needs. But I think funding for all charities, third sector organisations, is a challenge at the moment. But there are people wanting to give and to support that. And online events and online fundraisers seems to be a really good way of doing that, especially when we're not able to meet and hold the traditional types of ways we would. We had a Burns night supper last year to raise money for the Bothy and 150 people together, but we can't do that now. So finding ways online to do that and to connect with new supporters and donors is a way that I suppose we would want to try to go as well.
Absolutely. No such major project could come without significant challenges and setbacks, and it was of course no different for the Bridgend Farmhouse community, but it's admirable that you guys managed to find ways to deal with them. And of course, this entire journey and the challenges that came along with it would have surely have been a great learning experience for everyone that was involved in this project. Can you please define one thing, or perhaps one inspiring motto that you were able to take away from partaking in this initiative? or perhaps a quote that resonates with you, this project, the entire Bridgend Farmhouse community, and you'd just like to share that with us?
Well, one of the things I think there's a very inspirational community activist from Craig Miller, which is the community that we're from, called Helen Crummy. And Helen Crummy set up the Craig Miller Festival Society in the 60s, which was an organization where community arts were the catalyst for social change, um, and did some of the most incredible work with hundreds of people, thousands of people there to you know, bring about a transformation really in the community. And she had said that history will be made when the people play their part, and I think that's always such a and because it's such a strong motto, I suppose, in a way, and it's about everyone's playing their part in this particular project in different ways, and through those years, it has created such something which will have a long legacy and could be used for many years, but has been shaped by the people involved in that. So I really think there's something important there about making history through the collective efforts of everyone who's taking part. So that stands out for me, and also the sort of work or words of Patrick Geddes, who was a town planner, educator, ecologist who worked in Edinburgh 150 years ago. So now talked about by living we learn, and that sort of practical experiential education and the interaction of place, work, and folk, and we hope that the Bothy represents that type of thing. It's so that's that stands out with me. And just the quotes that we're hearing, you'll see them on the Givey page from the volunteers, just really show a testament to work that's been done and the impact that it's having on those people involved. It's what's warming and like reassuring and motivating when things are a struggle and are taking up a lot of time, especially for so many of us who are volunteering this on top of our own jobs or care and responsibilities or other things in life. So those are a few things.
Definitely. The quote specifically about making history through collective action is so crucial, and its importance is becoming increasingly clear to us. So thank you so much for sharing those inspiring quotes with us. And our last question for today is relating to your journey ahead. What's next? Can we hope to see more exciting projects from the Bridgend Farmhouse community? At the same time, are there any projects that you have started to work on already?
Mm-hmm. So we have continued to do continued on our response work in relation to COVID. We've continued providing welfare phone calls, online groups engagement, peer support, singing, arts and crafts, and developing that sort of skill sharing aspect of what we do. We are planning ahead now to adapt the facility and to make it accessible and safe as soon as it's able to, even for small groups, because we know how important it is for people to not feel isolated, and to address the mental health impact that this pandemic's had. So we want to provide whatever outdoor training opportunities we can. We will be doing traditional stone wall restoration courses, line pointing to rebuild some of the old stone walls on site, dry stone diking as well. We'll be hopefully building an outdoor play area in the steadings opposite the Bothy. And as I mentioned, a fully wheelchair accessible compost toilet as well. We'll be doing path building courses. We'll be developing a small mini orchard in one of our barns and developing a mindfulness garden in one of the steadings as well. And also utilising our bike workshop to provide more bike repair, but also to run bike rides. And so to do as much as we can to both support people through this pandemic to provide new training and engagement opportunities, and to continue to find ways to engage in an accessible and affordable way in sustainable ways of living. So there's lots of potential things ahead, and who knows what will follow, in future years as well. Lots more, we hope. Yeah, so any support people can give would really help with all of those things, and also help us in our motivation to keep going through all of this.
It certainly sounds like there are many exciting projects coming your way, and we wish you all the very best, and we hope to see all of these amazing projects in action very soon. Unfortunately, we are now moving towards the conclusion of this episode of Givey Connect Plus. Thank you so much, Will, for your time today and for sharing with us this amazing story, this amazing journey of the Bridgend Farmhouse with us today.
That's great. Thank you so much. And it's been really wonderful to talk with you today. And also thanks to Givey. We're a small charity with predominantly volunteers, with a very small staff team. Fundraising is difficult for us, and Givey has been absolutely fantastic to us, to have such a supportive fundraiser who also, don't have platform fees, and really encouraging, and so they're a great thing. So thank you for your time. It's been lovely to speak to you today.
Thank you so much, Will. And with that, we would like to conclude this episode of Givey Connect Plus. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Givey Connect Plus. We will be returning with another episode with another special guest very soon. But until then, goodbye and take care.